recording. Okay. Welcome everybody to meeting our 22nd meeting of the CAC, March 14th, 2023. Let's see, I get to the next slide here. Got actually not as much today as usual since we're kind of finishing up our 8.2 release, but starting in the next couple times we'll have a lot of things to cover, but we do have some topics today. We will not have a Menti survey for this meeting. So it's our usual stuff. We definitely will be talking about some future things, especially related to the, I do have a slide in here on the, I mentioned a couple of months ago, the new potential release cadence for Costpoint. We talked about it a bit at the CAC at ProjectCon back in November. I talked about it at one of our CAC meetings. I have a little bit of an update on that, but just trying to keep it fresh in everybody's mind. So that is a future thing that is, can definitely change and has not been circulated outside of the CACs. Costpoint team, I'm just back from vacation on Sunday. So you can see I inserted a vacation photo here. So you can see I was actually on vacation in my tie-dye shirt in Mexico. So my vacations are over. I guess some others will be starting soon, but March seems to be a good vacation month. Hope everybody has something fun planned. And as always with me are Nikki and Kevin. Okay, the agenda for today is our usual updates. Envision, Ideas Portal, coffee breaks, upgrade schedule. I do want to talk about for those enterprise customers, which is, I think, are a lot of you on the call today, the preview environments that will be starting tomorrow. And then I do want to give you a little update on that Costpoint release cadence. So that's my stuff. And then Nikki's gonna take it from there and go through, I think, just slides today. I don't know if there's any, I don't think there's any demos, but talk about two topics we've been starting to focus on as we think into the next release about the Excel export from the standard, or what we call the BERT reports, from within Costpoint. And we're starting to think about how we can improve those. We've gotten a number of feedback items in Ideas Portal and other areas about that. And then a continuing update on this, not the 11.2.4 upgrade itself, but the UI that we're bringing in for smaller companies, but also will have some impact on all companies. And we want to run a few things. Nikki wants to run a few things by you there. So that's our agenda for today. I'll go through my stuff fairly quickly. But if you haven't signed up, I'll send the deck out to everybody afterwards. And here's the link. If you haven't signed up yet, here's the instructions. Right now, pretty much all that's on there is the meetings. You'll see the meeting update in there for today, and then I'll post the recording and the slides in there as well. But certainly there's forums in there that we can start, questions or things on specific topics, and we might do that more as we move into planning features for the next release, where we want to get some quick initial feedback and things like that. So we will want to start using Envision for some of that. There is, with these types of applications, you go into your settings and there's notifications of how you want to get alerts. I think there is definitely, versus going into the application, ways of getting, for certain events, of posting or people responding to your posts, that you can get notifications on. That's kind of what I'd be relying on, because I certainly don't check this every day. That if someone puts a post in there, I'll probably see it via email and can just link to it, just like in Teams or other types of applications that are like this. So that's where we're collaborating instead of Teams now. If you weren't on the last couple of meetings, that's what we're doing. Everybody should have received an invitation for that, but if not, you can just go on this link and sign up there, because your emails should be in there. Okay, Costpoint Ideas Portal. This is just the general slide. I think most people in this meeting have been on it, and a lot of people have added ideas, but definitely good to vote on it, as we'll see in a minute. But it's very easy to get to from the support portal, where you go in to enter cases. Right at the top there's share your ideas link, and it takes you right into the Ideas Portal. And it's easy to use to vote and filter and look at what's in there, see what people are voting on, what's trending, that kind of stuff. So we are getting a lot of stuff in there that we're going to start to review. Here are the top ideas. I went back and compared it to last time, and the votes were exactly the same, except for the second one. The TE10 add missing timesheets went from 13 to 14. So that was about it since last month. So, if you haven't gone in and voted on some of these that are, only if they're important to you, go through and look at that. I'm going to, on the next slide here, this is actually the same one I featured last month. I thought I'd put it up here again because I didn't frankly see any that, that I wanted to feature this month. Plus, this is an important one, and it was the same amount of votes as last month. So if being able to publish reports to outside cloud location is important for you, we've heard from a number of customers that it is. We want to do that. So go in and vote on that one. Also, when you go in there and you filter on the business intelligence ideas, there are now like 53 ideas in there, and a lot of them are down there in the 1, 2, 3 vote range. As we start preparing, and this ties into the kind of the release cadence I'll talk about later, but it's definitely important to start, just start reviewing those. And if you see anything that looks weird in there, like 2 ideas that are the same or something, let me know about that, because usually I catch them and try and merge them, but I don't always get them. So, as you review them, if you see anything strange or something like, oh, I figured out how to do this, feel free to post in it or send me an email about it. Okay, so that's the ideas portal. We always talk about the coffee breaks. Those have been really successful. We've been having, I think, over 500 people sign up, and more than half of that amount actually attend, which is pretty good for a webcast. We've got our Q2 starting up, and we've got 3 coming up in Q2. What we do them in the first and second month of the quarter, so April and May, and then in June, the third, or in this case, second quarter, there's the overall town hall for Costpoint, which will be coming up in the next week or 2. So I'd encourage everybody to sign up for that, which I think, and I'm doing a section in there about the upgrade, and I'm just going to feature some dashboard stuff, but a lot of good information in the town hall about Costpoint in the next week or 2, and I forget. I think it might be next week sometime. But then there's these links in here. These are the coffee breaks you can sign up for coming up. There's the payroll best practices coming up in April. And then the BI, we always have 2 a quarter now, where I'm going to be talking about 11.2.4, which, you'll know a lot about already, but I'll be talking about that for everybody. And then, because that's happening right before the May upgrade of most of the customers. And then there's another one, I forget who's doing it, but on formatting techniques. Do we know who's doing that one?
I think I'm doing that one.
Are you doing that one? Okay, yeah. I know Bob and Dave did one recently. Terry did one. So we're sharing the fun of doing these coffee breaks. But I get to
and
do
I'll just say,
first.
if you've got something in particular you want me to highlight or show, let me know in advance, because I haven't planned it out yet.
Okay. Yeah, and we'll be thinking about Q3 as well. Yeah. Oh, you're talking about for the formatting techniques?
For the formatting.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And other ideas too that we always kind of do these a quarter ahead of time. Also, the past ones. These are all the past coffee breaks, whether it's Costpoint or BI. They're all with this link. If you see a topic on here you're interested in, you can go back and look at the prior coffee breaks. So it's all in one place on the website. Okay. Okay, this is the same slide as last time, but just to remind everybody, on all the upgrades that are coming up from now until middle of next year, right now we are in April, of course, or we're almost in April, we're in March, but March and April, this should say, the release of Cognos Analytics 11.2.4 and DSM, I think, that's mainly for the on-premise customers to be able to get it. But starting tomorrow, enterprise customers receive preview environment, and that still stands. I don't think we have any GCCM customers on. They're going to get their preview environments in a couple of weeks, but that's we're not doing everything at that same time. And we have the EA environment has been upgraded for those in the EA program, and even some that are not. I sent out links and set up a lot of people in the EA so they could go take a look at 11.2.4. So that's really starting to happen now. with these preview environments tomorrow. And I know some questions about that. We'll talk about that. I've got some detailed slides on that in a little bit. In May, I think it's all, this says May to June, but I think that is actually in May. Everybody is in production will be upgraded to 11.2.4 because we want to get that done before we start the 8.2 upgrades. And I don't, most people will not be getting 8.2 like enterprise, and most of the other customers will not be getting 8.2 till March to June of next year. But just to make sure 8.2 rolls out smoothly, we're doing it to a select, very lucky 160 customers. This in the July to September timeframe. That's just Costpoint 8.2. It's not BI because we run into that same issue where we have different multiple Costpoint pods. One might be upgraded, but we're running, 3 Costpoint pods on one BI pod, so we can't upgrade BI till everybody's done. So BI 8.2 content won't be coming out till this March to June timeframe, but there will be preview environments of that for enterprise customers for that next year. So, I mean, it's confusing, I know, but we'll have more time to talk about this as it gets closer. There are actually 2 CAC members that will be in this initial 8.2 group, so they can report back to us. I am not. I think it's Aaron at his company, and there's one other one, but it's not enterprise. I forget. There's 2 CAC members that actually are in those pods. I knew them at one point and went on vacation. Now forgot them. So, but we'll talk about that more when that gets closer to the July timeframe, and maybe they can report back to how their 8.2 upgrades went, and how that's going. But that's going to be big time period. We're stopping in October through February because for year end and all that stuff, nobody wants to upgrade during that time. So this is what's going on with both the 11.2.4 upgrades and the Costpoint 8.2 upgrades. That really hasn't changed at all since we talked about it last month. Okay, so I do want to talk about this preview environment. Most of you probably got the emails that were sent out on the 6th, I think. Well, there was one sent out earlier, like a month or 2 ago, and then there was more details sent out on the 6th of March, talking about the preview environment and what's going to happen. So the way that we're doing this is that a script will be run to basically give everybody who has BI access a menu item that says preview. So we have, when they go, so everyone will see it. It's really up to the administrators. If you don't want someone to see it, we'll talk about that in a minute. We're trying to get more information out about that. We've gotten a bunch of questions in about that, so we'll probably do another update email tomorrow to enterprise customers just to say, remember this is happening and these are some of the things to consider. But they will see this preview. When they go into the preview, there will be a banner. Oh yeah, go ahead. Oh, is that just a sneeze or something? Okay. When they go into the preview, there'll be a banner there that will tell them, hey, you're in a preview environment, and it basically will say this kind of exact same thing. Understand this is a preview environment. It's the new version. The first thing they see will be the screen with the video and the infographic on it that I'll talk about in the next slide. But there will be something saying, hey, don't write reports in here. It's just for testing purposes over this period. So they'll, it's something important to get your user, make sure your users are aware of, but we do have some other notifications in there. And there is a way to, if you don't want them to even see this at all, that you can take it off. We'll talk about it in a minute. So this, when they go in, this is what they're going to see on the tabs, the welcome page. And they'll see that it has a new look. There will be a banner across the top again that says, hey, you're in a preview environment. But there will be 2 learning assets down here at the bottom. The first one is a navigation video, which covers in pretty good detail what it used to look like, what it looks like now, how to navigate through it. So it goes through, here's the old look, here's the new look, and then a demo of the new UI. Pretty comprehensive. We're just finishing it up now. In the preview environment, we will be welcoming feedback on that. So as your users and you go into it and look at this, give us some feedback, because, this is only available for the preview environment now. We'll be finalizing it by these two assets by the end of this month, because then we'll be sending links out to everybody to go in and look at it before they upgrade in May. So probably early April, we'll send a note out with the links in and say, hey, this is coming. Here's 2 things you should look at before you upgrade, because the other customers won't have the benefit of the preview environment that enterprise customers have. So there's the video, and then there's an infographic, which is broken out into 4 sections on the new features, which are mainly for authors. There's new features that are in reporting, new features that are in dashboards, new features that are in the AI, and new features that are in the data module. So it's kind of broken into 4 areas, and I went through and kind of distilled those all the Cognos literature into the kind of the most important features that we want to know about, and put some detail into it. There's also a link that I can send out to that has the Cognos version of that, which is really in a lot of great detail. Plus, it's broken out by their 11.2.0, 11.2.1, 11.2.3, 11.2.4. All the 5 releases they did in 11.2. So you kind of have to dig through those, but those are a little more comprehensive. It has more stuff in it, but I tried to kind of distill it down, took some stuff from there to use in it. So the infographic is, should give you a good idea of, what new objects are in there, what new capabilities are in the reporting, authoring, and that kind of thing. So that's going to be important to take a look at those. And again, feedback on those, because we're going to update any changes or suggestions we get in March to that before we release it to the masses in April. Access to the preview environment. This is the app that gives them access to it. We're getting a little more detailed instructions about it, but this is, if you deny them access to this Cognos new, they won't get it. But when we're running the scripts right before the upgrade, everybody who has access to BI will have access to this app. So once that happens, which would be overnight tonight in the morning, see if you can deny access to people if you want to deny access to them. So any questions about that? In some ways it might be easier just to send a note to your users that it's out there and let them look at it, and if they want to, but up to you.
Actually,
Yeah.
Rick,
Yeah,
so we would like only selected,
Okay.
selective users to have access to this one, and not everyone.
Okay.
So is it through the profile settings that I go and disable it, or what is the best way to do that?
Nikki, do you know kind of the best? I mean, it would be through the groups, right? They could do it through the groups, like if they have certain groups they don't want to have access to it, they could deny it through that, right?
So yeah, so we have all those different capability groups. Those groups automatically come with access to all the applications that are within that module for business intelligence. So you could modify the groups so that it deletes access to this application, or you can do it on a user by user basis. If you want most of your people not to see it, it might be easier to modify the groups and then enable it for the 5 or so people that you want to see it, or you can deny it on a user by user basis. Either way you can do it.
Yeah, actually that user group or the capabilities groups is a good way if you have people that are just BI users or in the SIR users group or in SIR consumers, those probably be the likely ones that you wouldn't want to see it right away. So that would be a really quicker way to do it.
So we just want our CER developers to have access to it, and no one else as of now. So that's I'll play around in the test environment and see how that goes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
So hi, this is Jeff DeLisa.
Just
to confirm, so we actually removed the Cognos new from our groups. Will your scripts override that and reapply it? Or since I'm
under the impression that it might do that, it probably will do that. Isn't that right, Nikki? Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, is that the scripts will actually go in and give access to everybody.
I'm not really sure.
Because it's not there, they don't have access before, they're not seeing it. So they're giving access to it. And we decided on that versus not giving it to anybody, thinking that nobody would really see it then. So check again tomorrow. I'll get an exact time and get it out to the group to see. I think it's going to happen overnight tonight.
Okay.
And I have an email to the group to see when that's exactly happening, so that, you know, if you want to come in the morning and deny the access, that would be the best thing. Okay.
Thanks.
Yep. Okay. So that's that. Another important topic is this release cadence. And, you know, I know I can't remember more than a week ago, but, you know, a couple of months ago, I talked about this. And for those that were at the CAC meeting at Project Con, Tony did a whole section on this, but we are in fact changing the way we release. 8.1 was a big release, had a lot of stuff in it. 8.2, I mean, for us, it seems like it's going on forever, which I think maybe it has been a long time between releases, and there's a number of reasons for that. Some of it was just the rollout of 8.1 and adding some of the SMB features extended. But we'd like to get away from that. For those veterans on the call that have been around, remember the monthly updates we used to do. We're not going back to that with the sysjars and appjars and all that stuff. Though that's for on-premise, that may be kind of a part of it. So we're not going back to the extreme, you know, kind of monthly feature updates. But here's what we know now, and it's not yet finalized, so we're not certain exactly when, but this is gaining a lot of momentum. And there's one important point I want to make here on the last one for this group. But it will start after we release 8.2. We're not sure when the next 8.2 release will come out. It could be later this year, or it could be next year after everyone's upgraded. That's a topic of discussion right now. What will happen is the 8.1 release, we have a number of very large on-premise customers that, you know, really it's hard for them to go through the upgrade process more than once every few years. So our plan is to keep a long-term stable release. It's actually fairly similar for those that know how Cognos is doing it now, where they have, you know, they come out with their stable release and then they release, you know, these dot releases every 6 months or so. It's similar to that. So that customers on premise could stay on 8.1 for several years now, and it could be, I think, maybe 3 or 4 years while we do the 8.2 segment. So the current release 8.2 and any releases that come out after that, we will have innovation updates with new features on a more frequent basis, which would be, there's discussion on that, whether it's twice a year, 3 times a year. Yeah, probably will land possibly around twice a year, that there will be, you know, kind of major feature updates coming out for Costpoint, like 8.2.1, 8.2.2. I think that's how that's going to work, but we haven't really worked through the numbering or anything. It's not really that relevant, but the important part is that new features coming out sooner. And even for us, a very important thing is this last item, and that's what I wanted to emphasize, is the monthly updates, where we have, you know, the MRs coming out now with for 8.1 every month with fixes, but those are only fixes right now. We're looking at with MRs so that when we do the major releases, we don't have these long lists of all this little stuff, that we can actually include minor enhancements in these monthly updates. So ones that are not likely to be risky, you know, not cause issues with other applications, things like that. And it really applies a lot in the BI area, because, you know, if you do look through the ideas portal, there's a lot of ideas like, hey, add these 3 tables to the GL model, or update this report, put this column in, or something like that. Those are things we can get out pretty quick then if we have a mechanism like this, so that, you know, in theory, it could be put in there and get a bunch of votes on it, and we get it out in a couple of months, you know, a month or so, or, you know, so it's not just fixes. So I really think, you know, even if they're not, you know, extremely complex new reports where don't involve a lot of model changes or things like that, can put new reports in those updates. So it gives us a mechanism that, you know, right now we're saying, oh, 8.2, it's coming out, and we've been saying that forever and ever and ever. You know, we can get these things out really a lot quicker. So this is good. It's just to let this particular select group know that this is happening. We'll have more information on it, but it could be a good thing. So the idea is that in the cloud, customers would be getting all of the updates, so that the innovation updates and things like that, where on-premise customers have a choice of, staying on 8.1 or maybe waiting for several innovation releases to come out. They can upgrade when they want to. But a lot of the customers will just stay on 8.1 until we get to the end of 8.2 and say, okay, now 8.2 is the long-term release. They would have that option, but they wouldn't be getting any new features for a long time. But that might be okay when they look at it based on, what they have to go through to do upgrades in their organization. So that's any questions on that? I know it's a lot, and we'll keep updating you on it, but I did want to give a quick update on that today. Nope. Okay. Hopefully that was somewhat clear. I know it's a change, but the main thing is, again, it's just that, we'll be doing more frequent feature updates, but then on the monthly updates, we can do minor, what we're calling, I don't know what it's going to, like minor enhancement type things or updates. So there you have it. Okay. I think next is your stuff, Nikki, if you want to go through that. Talking about the Excel BERT reports.
Okay, yeah. So we're talking about doing some improvements to the BERT download mechanism post, I guess, the initial release of 8.2. And so I've been kind of studying what the current functionality is today, and just kind of wanted to present these differences to you and get some more feedback on, changes you'd like to see. So today you have two print options or file types when you download a BERT report to Excel. You have the Excel option, and you have an option called Excel 2010. When you choose the Excel option, it gives you sort of this WYSIWYG format. Like, what you see on the screen is what you get in Excel. It's highly formatted. It looks like, the report that you would print on the screen. You'll notice here, these are just some observations I made. The header appears. The subtotals are aligned with the columns. But there are some merge cells, which has been brought to our attention. That is an issue for some users when they're printing to Excel. And there are no apparent row limitations. And we'll talk about this more when I go to the next format. And when it generates the file in my downloads folder, I notice it's an XML document, but it opens up in Excel. And if you'll go to the next screen.
Yeah, you mentioned, Nikki, the row limitations. Didn't we hear something about that from the setting, which was like 100 pages or something, or in the cloud?
It's 100 pages in the cloud. Now, the interesting thing is I did not hit that limitation, or I did not get an error when I used this format, but I did get the error when I used the other format. So I don't know if that's something we overlooked when we set it up, if it's intended that there's a row or page limit on both types, but I just did observe that I could print this report and not get that row limit error. But if I ran the same report with Excel 210, I did get.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
And wasn't Excel 210 the one with I think you're covering that now, the one with the problems?
Yeah. This is the one with the problem. So you can see down here at the bottom, the error message, and I don't know how many rows, because this is all in one big page. Like in Excel, I don't see separate pages or separate tabs. It's just one list of rows. So I don't know what determines a page. I guess whatever the page is in BERT, there's maybe a certain number of rows on a page. But anyway, so it goes through when you generate this. And first, I guess it generates the report in the background and figures out how many pages it is. And then it tells you, oh, well, you can't print it because it's more than 100 pages. Now, I got around this by putting, only print the first 100 pages. And then you could, keep running that for 200 to 300 or to get ultimately all the pages. But there was that row limit when I used this format that wasn't in the Excel format. You'll notice here some other differences. There is no header that's printed out. And you'll see here the merge cells are gone, which means that now the subtotals are not aligned to the columns that they belong to. So that's a little weird. It might be good if you're trying to manipulate and sort the data, because now you don't have to deal with merged columns. But, you know, if somebody's just getting this and looking at it, it might be odd because that information is not aligned. And then you also have this expand. It generates this Excel file with the expand collapse feature here in place. And then, of course, when it exports, it generates an Excel workbook. So those were some of the key differences that I just observed when I printed them in different, using those different file formats. Now, I'll be honest, when I saw those options, whenever I've seen those options, I've always just chosen Excel because I thought Excel 210 would relate to an Excel version. I'm like, oh, well, we're in 2020. Surely I'm running a Excel version that's more, more up to date than that. So I always just ran Excel and didn't realize that there were actually, differences in the report that's generated. So I'm not sure if y'all realize these differences or not. But just to let you know that they are there, because maybe the alternate format would help you get around some of the issues that you're seeing, especially if it's related to merge sales. Maybe using the Excel 210 format would be better for you. You can go ahead and
because the person that brought this to our attention was like, well, what are these totals doing in the wrong columns? Wasn't aware of the other choice. So right. I think that could be happening, that it's Excel 2010, that's what they have in the default, and that's what they're running. So hold on, try again. There we go.
Okay, so this was just another example of a report. This is the Excel version, this is the Excel 210 version. Now, if you're doing data manipulation, like you're wanting to turn this into a pivot table, I don't see with this particular report how either version would be useful, just because it's like a report, like what I think of a sub-report within a report, because you've got this check information related to every voucher. So you got a lot going on in this report. So I don't know specifically, again, how you might use this in Excel.
I would think with these formats, it would drive you to BI pretty quickly to just do it there. But a lot of customers are, especially the smaller ones, would rather have a little control within Costpoint to get at least some of the basic information out in a format they can use.
Yeah, so I think some of those highly formatted reports are never going to be kind of Excel friendly, but I do see like there's lots of list reports or edit reports that are just lists of transactions where you might want to take them to Excel and sort them and manipulate them in other ways. But something like an income statement that's got a clear, format, order, I'm not sure exactly what you're doing with it in Excel. So I'd like to hear some of that stuff. But so again, I was looking for documentation, specific documentation on the differences to see if I could find anything. And I didn't find anything in our online help. So it doesn't even mention the Excel 210 file type as an option. So I think one thing, if nothing else, that we can improve is just documenting that those two differences exist. But when I talked to a BERT developer, they confirmed that, the purpose of the two layouts is that one preserves the look and feel at the expense of how the data is presented, and the other prioritizes the data at the expense of the layout. So those are, I guess, planned differences, but they're just undocumented at this point.
Yeah, and neither one is particularly useful for a data dump, really.
Right.
Yeah.
So I guess my question.
Do you want to go to the next slide, or?
Yeah.
Okay. I think that's where your questions were. Yeah.
So, one, did you realize there were two different options before today, and, how they would be used, which format?
I guess the first question, do you even take the BERT reports out to Excel, right?
Right.
Well, that's something you do.
How many of you, do take BERT reports to Excel, or do you use BI instead? I mean, how common is that amongst this particular group?
Yeah, if anyone wants to just kind of jump in and comment or type it in the chat, it's fine too.
So this is Shannon.
Hey, Shannon.
On a variety of reports, we do go to BI nearly immediately because if you just need to look at some data, that formatting's fine. But even on the Excel 2010, the format's so broken, you can't use pivots, you can't use anything, and it takes hours to clean it up. One report to look at is the security report under the admin, where it prints out the effective user rights report. That would really be a great report just to have a plain old table format. So we ended up building custom, BI reports to do all that. So yeah, going to Excel in a pivotable format would be really a huge addition, I think, for your users in just straight from the system from BERT.
And that's like flattened out too, so you're getting everything on every line, basically, right?
Yeah, you can have a header, but at least make the body of it, straightforward list. So if you don't want the header, you can just delete it out once it comes out. But right now they're nearly unusable the way they come out, except for just viewing.
Yeah, I thought it'd be nice too. What do you think about if there's a selection, say, put the header on it or not?
Yeah, something like that.
Some of those, yeah. I mean, it'll vary on from report to report, but having that option. Okay. Anybody else?
I think I saw some comments coming in the chat. Let me
I see one. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So a lot of users in there are using it. Yep.
Okay. So I guess my general question was, if you didn't realize there were these two options, do you think now, knowing that there's this other unformatted version versus a formatted version, does that solve any of your problems, or do you still have problems? It sounds like Shannon's saying either option is still not ideal, that you still have, things that you have to kind of clean up before you can manipulate it. It sounds like some improvements that we would like to see is the ability to include or exclude the header. I'm thinking too, maybe the ability to include or exclude the subtotals. If you're just wanting raw data and manipulating it, you could probably generate your own subtotals easily. And it's just kind of my thoughts. I know that there's some information that gets presented in like groupings that probably should be a row if you're going to take it into Excel, so that you can, again, sort by those items. Is there anything else? And again, it probably depends on your use, and it might depend on the report. It's why you're taking it to Excel. Some people some people say that they're just printing them to have a backup copy somewhere, and they're not really manipulating it. So what they get today is probably fine, but I feel like there's a lot of people that do take it to Excel to pivot the data and do other manipulations with.
Yeah, it seemed like some too that we've talked to, Nikki, that they are doing it just to send it out to people that don't go into Costpoint sometimes.
Right.
Like an income statement or things like that. What about tabs? Is there potential need for, I'm running it at, for a select group of projects, and I want a tab for each project or something. I don't think that's something we can do today, right?
That's not something that appeared you could do today.
Right.
Everything, it seemed like, even if the report was multiple pages, it just came in one long tab, single tab in Excel. It wasn't multi-tab.
You have to your list to find out when James is coming, right?
I'm sorry, what was that, sir? Oh, maybe that wasn't for us. Yep. Okay.
So any other feedback about Excel? Or is this still something that's of high importance to you for us to put into our future enhancements?
Yeah, I know this was prioritized pretty high before, right?
Yeah.
When we looked at it. And we'll get some, we'll have chances for some feedback as we refine this. But, the next step is we'll take some of these back to the developers and see what's possible. What can be done quickly, what are the bigger ticket items, and maybe get some priorities within that. But certainly any of these things are feedback. Maybe we want to start a chat on it in the in Envision, Nikki, maybe to see if people want to post some some comments there, or maybe want to go back and look at it and play with it a little bit.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that was critical for me to.
Yeah, I know. I have to go back and do it every
actually
time.
look
And
at it,
yeah. And I don't think when I ever run it before, I think I wouldn't use the 2010 option, because it's like, well, I'm not on 2010, so I'm not going to use that.
Right.
But I was really surprised
Yeah.
to see see those totals in a different column.
I think just naming it differently might
Right,
clue
exactly.
some people in that
Yeah.
there might be something different there.
Right.
I'm not sure how that naming convention came about, but anyway, but that's really all I had about Excel. So yeah, I think that's a good idea to start a discussion in a vision to kind of figure out what people are struggling with and having to change when they get it to Excel, so that we can fix those things in future releases. That's all I had there. And then the next thing was just real quick to kind of update your progress on some of the
Was this the right one?
Yeah,
that's right. Okay. Yep.
Yeah, the 8.2 development initiatives that are going on. So so this is, and this is very similar to the UI you'll see in your preview environment, or once you're upgraded to 11.2. But this is our 8.2 version. So this comes after that initial upgrade. And so there's an additional tab in here that you'll see once you go to 8.2, and it's this menu report. And then you can go to the next screen. And if you'll remember, we talked about having a specific set of tabs depending on what type of user you were. That a project manager, we wanted to present an extra tab to them that landed on this project report that gave them a lot of great information about their project. We have run into some stumbling blocks with our initial approach, and so we're reconsidering how we're approaching this. It's not really kind of built-in functionality in Cognos to be able to have a different set of tabs for different users. And so, we had some workarounds, but we were finding that it conflicted with some, standard functionality of Cognos. So we needed to take a step back from that and present the same tabs to every user. Because we couldn't really say, we want this user to have these 3 tabs and this other user have these 5 tabs. It didn't really work out that way. So what we're taking a different approach so that every user gets the same tabs, no matter who you are, but the information in the tabs might be different. We can't really make the tabs conditional, but if the tab is actually reflecting information on a report, then we can build conditions into the report. So that's kind of what we've done. The other problem we kind of ran into with this project report is it's a pretty complex report. Just looking at it, it's, 6 or 7 different queries to get all your project data from PSR and your accounts receivable data and your open billing detail, all that stuff. It's a lot of queries running. It's a complex report, and it might not be the wisest decision to have this report automatically launch every time a project manager logs in, because it's launching, all these queries. Let's say you have a bunch of different project managers logging in at the same time, which I don't necessarily think that's going to be a problem. But if we think beyond 8.2 and we start developing more landing pages for different types of personas, then in the future you have executives and project managers and maybe resource managers all logging in, and it's all automatically generating a report with all these key statistics. It might, it's going to it's going to have some performance impacts, I think. So we needed to reconsider how we were going to do that. And maybe instead of auto launching the report, we decided we would just change the welcome page for a project manager. And again, this is something that's just going into that starter edition feature, but it's if a project manager, a person that has a project role, logs in, the welcome page then becomes maybe a custom welcome page for a project manager that says, hey, these are this is a link to this really great report. So they are specifically, message specifically aimed at them that highlights that this report is available, and it's got all their kind of key project highlights. I mean, this is, again, just a prototype. It's probably not going to look like this in the end, but instead of auto launching the report, it's just going to have a button to launch the report, and that way we'll get a lot, control the executions. We know that that report is being executed when somebody wants to execute it, and not just auto executing every time they log on. So we think in the long run, that's going to be better overall for the performance.
Yeah, and as we get closer to 8.2, we'll want to talk about what existing customers are seeing or what they can do to leverage this content, because it's not necessarily going to automatically show up for them, and we're not really, at least initially, not putting instructions out on how to leverage all the new user groups and stuff like that. But we'll want to talk about that, because I know there was some interest in accessing some of this content, like the menu report in this particular. Go ahead. I think I cut somebody off there. Sorry.
Scott, is it going to be a feature where we can turn this on and off for our users?
Turn what specifically on and off?
These reports for each of the tabs.
So again, this particular, the tabbed view is not going to be something you can turn on and off. Like, these are the tabs you're going to get. But if you're not in the standard edition, you're not going to get this particular visual. You'll just get the regular welcome page that we're sending to everybody. Yeah. This particular message here is specific to the starter edition.
Well, the starter edition's the for smaller businesses, that Costpoint version. And it's also dependent on the user groups that they use, which are different, which will be different groups than what you all are using. So the tabbed approach will be there, but no one will out of the box when we upgrade see this content, right? This report won't show up automatically.
The report won't show up automatically.
Right,
you have to click to launch it. Yeah. So there's no auto launching of any reports.
But will their users, if they change nothing, will it see this page? Probably not, right? Because they're not part of that group.
If you'll go to they're not part of the group. Right. So if you go to the previous slide, all users will see this page. See, it's the welcome tab. So everybody will see, this is a report that has this welcome message. That's what everybody will see, unless you happen to belong to this special project role group. And then for that group, this page conditionally renders as that other one that has a link to their report.
Right.
So, but again,
we'll
if you're not part of
as
that
we
group,
get closer, but it will depend on the group. Also, I'm thinking, by the time they're upgrading, Costpoint BI won't have a new look.
Right.
Yeah,
we
so
might change
we'll
this
update
welcome
this.
message.
We
might need to change this welcome message for each.
Yeah, right.
That's kind of the welcome message we see.
Yeah, it might still be there for those first customers that are going in July, but not for next year, because that won't be a new look at that time.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
So, and then the next thing is the next tab, which is new, is the menu report tab. We talked about, I think last time we had a vote on who liked the light mode and who liked the dark mode. And it was basically, there was no compelling winner there. I think we had 7 votes for light and 5 for dark. So what we're going to do is we're going to, keep the default as the light mode for now. It's going to list your reports in there. And then we're considering for future enhancement is to pass the user's preference from Costpoint for light or dark mode, because they're introducing a dark mode in 8.2, right?
Yep.
We're going to pass that preference to Cognos, and then we can render it in dark mode based on that Costpoint setting in a future release. So in the background, the report is already developed with both modes in there, with a dark mode and a light mode, but we're just kind of defaulting in the light mode right now. And then when we pass that parameter in a future release, then it'll read your setting, and those that want it in dark mode will have that option.
Now, again, the menu report won't automatically show up, will it, for their users?
Yes, it will automatically show
It
up.
will automatically show up. Okay.
It'll automatically show up.
Yeah.
So if you're one of those companies that don't want to expose the team content to your users, like if they're not assigned, so if your users aren't assigned to those groups, to our standard groups, they're not going to see anything in the report. They're going to see the report, but they're not going to see anything in it because these show based on what groups they're assigned to. But if you want to add your standard reports or your custom reports in there, then you use that new Costpoint user interface and you can add links to your custom reports.
Right. Okay.
But that's really the changes. The only kind of differences that we're taking now is that we're not going to auto launch that report. We're just going to have a button to it. So it's not maybe as appealing, eye-catching, but I think performance-wise, it's a better option for now until we come up with something.
And it'll show up in their menu report, and it'll also show up in their recenses. That's the main thing they look at.
Right.
They can pretty quickly get to it, but it's not. We kind of wanted it. Hey, here's your hub. Here's what shows up when you log in, but it's just not for Cognos technical reasons and for performance reasons. Probably not something we can do right away for those customers that are using it.
And another thing to note, like, you have all those tabs that are exposed when a user initially logs in, they're going to log in, they're going to come to that welcome tab. But from that point forward, whatever tab they tend to use the most, whether it be team content or the menu report or the my content, it remembers where they were when they logged out, and it will bring them back to that tab from then on. And so they don't necessarily see that welcome tab again unless they just kind of live there and happen to be there when they logged out. So it will return you to wherever you last were. So, again, if you're living in the menu report, if you're living in team content or company content, that's where it's going to take you back to. So you're not always having to, come back and see that welcome message, which I think is kind of nice.
Okay. Was that the last one?
Yep.
That was it. Okay. Got a couple minutes left, which is unusual, but only 7. So any questions or anything at all? It doesn't have to be related to the content today before we close out.
So there were a couple of questions.
Oh, okay.
One is related with Scott asking, support indicated there will be a Cognos performance improvement this week. I checked with cloud team. They're not aware of any infrastructure change. They did change one enterprise pod database, but that's it. So
that might be Scott, so right?
Yeah. I'll forward the email from support.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the related.
It's probably his pod. Yep.
So there was one database upgrade. So
Okay. Yeah, let's see if that's what they're talking about, because I couldn't figure it out.
Okay. And Jeff asked about improved performance for the new and secure Cognos package. Yes, so in A2, we rewired, so the security is no longer reside in the model, in Cognos model, because when you have all the security in the model, Cognos consider you are overriding the SQL, so you generate that long and not that optimized SQL. So we push the security in A2 into a security view in Costpoint, and then we join all the tables to that security view. And then we also handle differently. Basically, the company do not have model security, or just org security, and also just people want to leverage project role security differently. Right. So therefore, we believe it's going to give you a better performance and optimize.
Yeah, and that is important point there on the project role security, because that nobody's really using that because we haven't released 8.2 yet, but that could have been something that was a real performance killer with, generating, what was it, like a row for every project in person or something. And that's been retuned. So that should, you know, if you want to start using that with the 8.2 upgrade, is a, you know, should be better performance, especially in the smart AI models if you're using those, but just in general, right, Kevin?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, it's general. All our
Yeah.
packages where
Yeah.
we are
Yeah.
using the security review.
Right.
Yep.
Right. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, so, you know, everyone feel free to message me tomorrow with any questions on the new preview environment, because I'd like to hear about that, because we, you know, there's, you know, it's going to all the enterprise customers tomorrow. So if you see that, have any questions, something's not working like you think it should, you know, please feel free to email me right away. Anything else? Anybody on the call? Deltek folks, anybody? Okay, great. Well, thanks for all the feedback today, and we will see everyone in April. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Thank you.